Hey everyone, my name is Andy Barninger. Today we're going to be making Cajun shrimp tacos. It's a really good dish, so let's get into it. In our large saute pan, what we're going to do is we're going to throw 1 tablespoon of butter and put it over about a medium heat. And just let that preheat while we're doing the rest of our prep. So first thing for prep, we're going to take about 1/4 of a large white onion, and we're just going to chop this up. And this is actually going to be one of the kind of like the toppings for our Cajun recipe. So, and this doesn't need to be pretty whatsoever, just because it's actually going to be almost pureed into a sauce for the recipe. So just a quick chop of the ingredients. Next, you're going to throw in about 1 diced bell pepper. And remember, that's over low heat, so you can just let it chill back there. It's not gonna burn, it's gonna be okay. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna grab 2 large cloves of garlic and just kind of roughly chop those as well. And with our onions and peppers, we're just gonna throw the garlic in there, move the pan around a little bit. And the next thing we're gonna do is we're actually gonna grab about 2 sprigs of green onion. We're going to remove those stems, set them off to the side. And we're just gonna take this green onion and do a quick chop over it. And once again, back into the pan. So the next step in our recipe is we're actually going to take our shrimp, coat them in a blackening spice, and blacken them in our cast iron pan. With shrimp, you can get them in a bunch of different ways. You can get them pre-cooked, raw with the shell on, raw with the shell off, or what we have now, peeled and deveined. So basically, they've pulled the shell off, and there's this little, basically, vein going down the back of the shrimp that's been pulled out. If you eat the shrimp with the vein in there, it's kind of chewy. I mean, you can do it, no problem, but I just prefer peeled and deveined just because everything's been removed, they're easy to prep. In addition, we're using small shrimp. So if you look at shrimp, or any seafood for that matter, like scallops, you'll see that they have a count. And that count is essentially how many of the shrimp, or whatever seafood you're using, is per pound. What we're using today is 4160. So if I were to take 41 to 60 of these little shrimp and put them on a scale, that means that I'd have about a pound of shrimp. So we want to use them because, once again, they're going in a taco. So you don't want something big in there because it's going to be hard to eat. But if we use a small shrimp, it's going to be, you put 3 or 4 of them in there and it's going to be pretty easy to eat. So we're going to take about 8 ounces of shrimp. And if they have the tails on them, it's just as easy as pinching the tails off and throwing them aside. So next, we're gonna take our blackening spice and coat our shrimp with it. You can make your own blackening spice. It normally has cayenne, paprika, onion, garlic, basil, salt. I prefer just to buy a pre-made one just because it's more efficient, it's easier to use. And you're basically gonna take a tablespoon of blackening spice, a pinch of nutmeg, a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and just coat your shrimp with it. And we're just gonna mix that together nicely, just to make sure the shrimp is evenly coated. Next, what we're gonna do is, if you remember from earlier, we had our onions, garlic, and pepper. What we're gonna do now is we're actually gonna take a tablespoon of flour and just throw it into that pan. So what this is gonna do, it's actually gonna make what we call a roux. A roux is actually going to thicken this for us. So when you throw it in there, literally just stir it all together, make sure you have no visible flour left. Throw it back on the burner for about a minute. And in that minute, what we're gonna do is we're actually going to turn the heat up on our cast iron pan. And remember, blackening, you may produce a lot of smoke. So if you're in an apartment, I would recommend turning on a vent. So over a medium-high heat, no oil, no anything in the pan. We're actually just gonna lay the shrimp in the pan. And remember, shrimp, and we're using a very small shrimp, so that shrimp will take about, I would say, 30 seconds on one side, 30 seconds to 60 seconds on one side, and then we're gonna flip it for another 15 to 30 seconds, and the shrimp will be completely cooked. So as they're sauteing, what we're gonna do is we're going to take a 1/3 cup of vegetable stock, and we're going to throw it into our onions, garlic, and pepper, whisk that around, and we're just gonna let that chill. We're gonna let it simmer down. Remember, it's over medium heat, so we're gonna let it simmer down, cook out all that flour, and kind of thicken up a little bit. Once again, this is actually gonna go on our taco as a topping. After your shrimp has cooked for about a minute, we're gonna flip all the shrimp around just to sear the other side. And like I said, these shrimp are pretty small, so they're not gonna take long to cook at all. And overcooked shrimp is gonna become chewy. So you don't want undercooked where it's still raw in the center, but you want something kind of in the middle where it's not overcooked and chewy or not raw. So if you remember, we preheat our oven to 350 to begin. What we're gonna do is we're actually gonna take our taco shells. So for this one, I opted for flour taco shells, just because we do have the sauce for it that's going in it with the onions and peppers is going to be kind of more heavier. So what we're gonna do is I wanted flour taco shells so that it doesn't fall apart. So just throw them right on the top rack just to warm up. And by this time, your shrimp are done. Pull them right out of the pan. With your onions, garlic, and pepper mixture, we wanna make sure that it's cooked for about 10 minutes now, and we wanna make sure that it's a thick, nice mixture, but you don't want it too runny. So that's why you want to cook it for a little bit, just to kind of evaporate all that moisture, but thicken the sauce a little bit. People tend to think that butter is a bad ingredient, butter makes you fat, butter is bad for your health. It's generally not the case. So butter, high in saturated fats. So saturated fats have been kind of demonized for the past 30 or 40 years for being bad fats that cause heart disease. However, that's not the case. Saturated fats are actually good. I'm not gonna say that all of your diet should consist of saturated animal fats like butter, but what I am gonna say is that in moderation and with a proper amount of polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, saturated fats are actually beneficial. They have a lot to do with your hormones. So basically, for example, testosterone. Testosterone, its backbone is cholesterol. Cholesterol comes from a lot of animal fats. So, for example, butter, or let's say a steak, the cholesterol from that will actually be beneficial for optimizing your hormone status. And I mean, if you want to make gains in the gym, testosterone is definitely a big player in that. In addition to that, butter is also high in something called MCTs, or medium chain triglycerides, as well as SCTs, or short chain triglycerides. These are actually fats that are metabolized very quickly and are used as a good energy source. So after you have pulled your onion, garlic, and pepper mixture out, as well as your blackened shrimp and your wheat shells, what we're gonna do is we're going to actually make some garnishes for this. So we're gonna grab another green onion, remove the stem off of that, and we're just going to quickly slice the top of it. We're going to set that aside. Next, we're going to take a lemon, remove any stickers that may be on there. Take that lemon, cut it in half, then cut those halves in half again. Set those aside. We're gonna do one more step here. So what we're actually gonna do is we're going to take sour cream. I opted for a low-fat sour cream because we had the butter in there. I want to keep the fat fairly low in this recipe. So we're gonna take sour cream, and we're only gonna use about a 1/4 cup here. So we're gonna take a 1/4 cup of sour cream, throw it into a glass bowl. So our last step in this recipe is we're actually gonna take about a 1/4 cup of sour cream, 1 teaspoon of our blackening spice, kind of mix them together. And this is actually just gonna be a sauce. And I opted for a low-fat sour cream just because we already had the butter in there. So I wanna keep the fat down on this recipe. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna coat the bottom of the taco shells with about a teaspoon of the mixture. sour cream mixture. Next, we're gonna take our onion, garlic, and pepper mixture, about a tablespoon of it, and lay it in the bottom of the taco shell on top of the sour cream mixture. What I want to do next is now take some of your lemon and sprinkle a little bit on the taco shell over top of the mixtures. And now we're gonna finish it with our shrimp. So in these shells, you're going to put about 3 or 4 shrimp, just enough to make it so you can actually wrap the shell around, but you don't want it spilling everywhere. So 3 or 4 seems to do the trick. So now to finish the shrimp, what we're gonna do is take our sliced green onion from the beginning, top the sliced green onion on there. Finish it with a little bit more lemon juice. And then you're good to go. Again, my name is Andy Barninger, and thank you for tuning into this recipe. You guys can follow me at The Performance Chef on Instagram, and be sure to keep an eye out for more content from Myotrend.